It's been a crazy first 2 weeks of the college football season. There have been a number of upsets and a lot of movement in the polls. As I'll be doing after every weekend during the season, here's my top 25 ballot after week 2 of the college football season. Before we get to today's video, make sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are that you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel, so make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. I'll be posting college football videos every day during the season, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, make sure to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. Remember last week when I had Georgia ranked number 1? Turns out I wasn't so crazy after all. After a dominating win last week against Oregon, the Georgia Bulldogs didn't miss a beat this week. Granted, their competition was significantly weaker, but they still took care of business. Stetson Bennett threw for 300 yards with 2 touchdowns, 15 different wide receivers caught a pass. Yep, 15 different receivers. The defense was lights out as they allowed only 3 first downs for the entire game. Stanford went 1 of 13 on third downs and had only 130 total yards. But yet, they were a lot closer than Oregon was. Alabama nearly fell to Texas, but they still managed to hang on for the victory. It wasn't pretty, but a win is a win. Bryce Young led an incredible game-winning drive at the end of the game and showed why he's the Heisman winner in that fourth quarter. The game was an eye-opener for Alabama as maybe they're not as dominant as they've been in years past. After a close finish last week against Notre Dame, Ohio State cruised to a 33-point victory over Arkansas State. CJ Stroud bounced back nicely as he threw for 350 yards with 4 passing touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr. caught 7 passes for 185 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Travion Henderson rushed for under 100 yards but had 2 rushing touchdowns. They didn't cover, but Michigan dominated Hawaii from start to finish as they defeated them by 46 points. J Mccarthy was the starter this week for the Wolverines, and he looked pretty damn good. He completed 11 to 12 passes for 230 yards with 3 passing touchdowns. 5 different players had a rushing touchdown as Michigan averaged more than 8 yards a carry while rushing for 270 yards as a team. It was a little close for comfort at the half as Oklahoma led Kent State 7-3. They flipped the switch in the second half as they outscored them 26-0. Dillon Gabriel had another solid outing for the Sooners as he threw for 300 yards with 3 passing touchdowns. The Sooners held the Golden Flash's offense in check, limiting them to only 3 points with no touchdowns. They forced 2 turnovers and really stepped up on defense when they needed to. USC won by 13 points, but this was a much bigger blowout than the score indicated. They led by 27 points entering the fourth quarter, but Stanford got some late scoring in. Caleb Williams had another great performance as he threw for 340 yards with 4 passing touchdowns. Travis Dye rushed for 100 yards with a score, and Jordan Addison caught 7 passes for 170 yards with a score. I am a bit concerned though with this USC defense as they did allow 33 first downs and 450 yards of total offense. They did force 4 turnovers, which is what helped them dominate the game. But when they're not getting those turnovers, this defense can't stop anyone. Clemson took down Furman, so it wasn't exactly a tough matchup for them, though they were a 45-point favorite and won by only 23 points. So not the most impressive showing from them either, considering they were expected to blow them out. DJ Uiagalelei completed 21 to 27 passes for 230 yards with 2 touchdowns and an interception. Clemson was held scoreless over the final 25 minutes, though they were probably just trying to end the game as soon as possible. It looked like my Sun Devils would have a chance at taking down Oklahoma State as they trailed by only 3 points in the fourth quarter, but the Cowboys picked things up and ended up escaping with a comfortable 17-point victory. Spencer Sanders looked good, not great, as he threw for 270 yards with 2 touchdowns and an interception. He also added 50 yards on the ground with a rushing score. Back-to-back solid wins for Arkansas as they look like a legitimate threat in the SEC this season. KJ Jefferson was great as he totaled over 220 yards with 2 touchdowns. Raheem Sanders rushed for 150 yards with 2 rushing touchdowns and caught 3 passes for 30 yards. Meanwhile, on the defensive side, Drew Sanders was all over the place for the Razorbacks. He recorded 11 tackles, with 3 coming for loss and 2 sacks, with a pass deflection and a quarterback hurry. I talked about them in my winners video, but I really think Arkansas can make a legitimate run in the SEC this season. BYU's kicker nearly blew the game twice for the Cougars, but they still managed to pull out the victory against number 9 Baylor. They have another stud quarterback in Jaron Hall as he totaled 300 yards yards with a touchdown. This is a Cougars team that has only 4 losses over the last 3 seasons, so they've consistently been one of the best teams in the country. Keep an eye on them in the postseason hunt this year. As of right now, they have 3 top 25 games on their schedule, including some other matchups against some really solid opponents. If they run their schedule, they can find themselves right in the playoff hunt. Kentucky went into the swamp and pulled off the impressive victory against number 12 Florida. The offense wasn't great, as Will Levis only posted a quarterback rating of 40, while the rushing attack didn't really do much either. It was their defense that stepped up and won the game, as they held Anthony Richardson to only 4 yards on the ground and forced him to throw 2 interceptions. They held the Gators offense scoreless over the final 35 minutes of the game. The Spartans moved to 2-0 on the season after a 52-0 beatdown of Akron. It was the running game that did all the damage for Michigan State. Jalen Berger rushed for 100 yards with 3 rushing touchdowns, while Jarek Broussard rushed for 80 yards with 2 rushing touchdowns. Elijah Collins also added 60 yards on the ground with a rushing touchdown as well. The Spartans haven't really had a true test yet this season, so it'll be interesting to see how they fare this weekend on the road at Washington. Miami moved to 2-0 on the season after another easy win. They took down Southern Miss by 23. Tyler Van Dyke and Henry Parrish led the offense again, as Van Dyke had 250 yards with a touchdown, while Parrish had 130 yards with a touchdown as well. The defense did what they were supposed to do, as they held the Golden Eagles to 7 points and just over 200 yards with 3 turnovers. They'll have their first major test this weekend as they travel on the road to Texas A&M. We'll get a solid idea of how this Miami team looks with this matchup. Utah took all their frustration out on Southern Utah after losing the previous week, as they defeated them 73-7. The crazy thing is, this game was actually tied at 7 at the end of the first quarter. Utah scored 38 points in the second quarter and 28 points in the second half. Cameron Rising threw for 250 yards with 3 touchdowns. As a team, the Utes rushed for 250 yards with 5 rushing touchdowns. This was a great game for Utah to get back on track. Tennessee picked up their second win to start the season with an impressive comeback victory on the road at number 17 Pittsburgh. Hendon Hooker had 350 yards with 2 touchdowns, while Cedric Tillman caught 9 passes for 150 yards with the game-winning touchdown in overtime. After Tennessee went down 17-7, they outscored the Panthers 27-10 the rest of the way. Their defense shut them down for the final 3 quarters of the game. NC State also had a nice bounce-back week, as they were gifted a matchup against the Charleston Southern Buccaneers. Devin Leary threw 4 touchdown passes. The defense held the Bucs to only 9 first downs, 150 yards, and 1 of 15 on third downs. If NC State didn't win this game by 50+ points, then we would have had a real problem here. Ole Miss moved to 2-0 after their win over Central Arkansas. The Rebels had more than 500 yards of total offense, even though they had the ball for only 23 minutes. This is an Ole Miss team that I was very high on entering the season, but it looks like we have to wait until October 1st to see them play a really good team in Kentucky. So I guess we'll have our answer then on how legit this team truly is. Wake Forest moved to 2-0 on the season after they took down powerhouse Vanderbilt, who was undefeated. Sam Hartman returned and threw for 300 yards with 4 touchdowns. With him back and healthy, this is a team I'm really keeping an eye on this year, as they'll be a threat once again in the ACC. I was worried about them with Hartman out, but now that he's back, they can start to climb through the rankings. Had Baylor just made a field goal in overtime or played some sort of offense, they would have beaten BYU. Instead, they fell to the Cougars in double overtime on the road. I still think Baylor is a really good team and might find themselves in the top 10 at some point later in the year, but this was an ugly second half for them all the way around. For some odd reason, Appalachian State didn't crack the top 25. No worries though, because I have them in mind. They went into College Station and took down the number 6 team in the country. Had it not been for a thrilling loss in week 1 in which they scored 60 points, we'd potentially be talking about this team being a top 15 to 20 team in the nation right now. Their defense completely suffocated A&M all day and allowed them to do nothing on offense. The Mountaineers are a damn good team who have a very favorable schedule the rest of the way. I'm bummed that Texas cracked the top 25 because I thought it was going to be a hot take of mine that I had them inside my top 25. I know they lost, but I think everyone agrees that they were the better team all game. As Steve Sarkisian said following the game, they just ran out of time. If they would have won, Texas likely would have been ranked inside the top 10, so I think having them here is more than fair. This Longhorns team impressed me more than I thought they would, and I gotta give them my respect. Losing Quinn Ewers for a significant amount of time definitely hurts them though, as I'm not sure how far they can go with Hudson Card as their quarterback. This win wasn't as thrilling as their first game, but Penn State took care of business against Ohio and beat them by 36. The Nittany Lions had nearly 600 yards of total offense and just played an all-around great game. This was a wildcard team for me entering 2022, as we've seen them be really good and really bad over the last 2 seasons. Well, to start the year, they've been really good. Minnesota is 2-0 on the season, and they're a quiet team we should keep our eyes on in the Big Ten. They beat Western Illinois by 52 in an offensive showing. Tanner Morgan had only 4 incompletions as he threw for 300 yards. Muhammad Ibrahim had another great game as he had 130 yards on the ground with 2 rushing touchdowns, as he continues to show that he's one of the top running backs in the entire nation. So far in the young season, Minnesota has outscored their opponents 100-10. I know it's still early, but maybe the Gophers are a team that can do some damage in the Big Ten. I didn't have Florida fall out of the top 25 completely, but I was really disappointed with their loss to Kentucky. Like I mentioned in my previous video, Florida's a team who could very easily be 0-2 on the season, so having them in the top 25 still seems pretty generous. I have their game in 2 weeks circled against Tennessee, as that's going to be a perfect test as to whether or not we should buy stock in this Gator squad or we should sell all the shares we have. You know what? Last week we ended this top 25 with a why not, so we'll do the same again this week. Let's get Marshall in there at 25. They went into Notre Dame and took down the Irish. I have the Irish nowhere near my top 25, so you can make the argument that this win isn't as impressive as initially thought, but I think it sure was. They're 2-0 on the season, and it was one of the biggest wins in program history, so we'll get the Thunder and Herd in my top 25. Well, those are my top 25 teams after week 2. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think about the rankings. Was there a team I had ranked too high or a team that was ranked too low? Was there a team not even on this list that should have been in here? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, make sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'll be posting college football videos every day during the season, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, make sure to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.